Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 114. I am Nathan Springer, your host. Thank you for being here. Tonight is the 2nd of August. Time is flying, whether you're having fun or not, really and truly. You don't have to be having fun for the time to fly. I've noticed that quite some time now. That time flies when you're having fun business. They're a bit mistaken. The time flies either way. If you're having fun, it flies. If you're not, it's still flying. It just flies. But I'm not sure that makes any of that much better. Tonight we're talking about gang violence because that seems to be the plague in Trinidad and Tobago. Nearly every night, every day, you hear some person being shot, and very regularly it's linked to gang violence. And really and truly, when you're talking about gang violence, you can specify this as male gang violence because yes, there are women, yes, there are girls involved, yes, there are females involved there and in certain places, certain parts, but the vast majority is young males. It's a young male problem. And something that seems to kind of tell a stark story about this, at least to me, because I was following this story. I was following it more for the legal side of it. We spoke, what's up, easy, good night, good night. We spoke about this in the live quite a few times. Numerous times we brought up this about the bail amendment bill that was being spoken about in court. It was being argued against in court because the idea was the parliament said if you are accused of a really bad crime, if you are accused of a really bad crime like murder, then you shouldn't even be able to go and ask for bail. You should not get a chance to get bail. Let's lock you up one time. But some people were saying that an accused person is not a convicted person. And in our legal system, you have to treat someone who is accused as if they are innocent until they are proven guilty. So therefore, they should at least, in proper legal rights, have access to asking for bail. And then a judge or a master could look over it and decide, well, yeah, you could probably get bail, because some cases do have some nuance like that. There are some people who are charged with murder and are not convicted of it. And if you are charged with murder and you are not convicted of it, but you cannot get bail in the in-between time, you would end up in jail, especially in our system where court cases take so long to go through. You would end up in jail for quite some time while in the end being found innocent of the crime. That's not exactly a favorable thing. And when you're thinking about justice in a society, that doesn't sound like a very just act. And our appeal court struck it down first. They said, well, yeah, someone who is accused of murder should still be able to access requesting that bail. They struck it down first. And the thing is, for that to have even reached the court, someone had to bring up the case in the first place. There was a young man who was charged with murder. I believe he spent 9 years in jail and eventually was freed of the murder charge, and he wasn't allowed his bail, and he took the matter to court and carried it straight through. So he was the complainant on the matter. Now, shortly after this matter was completed, because the government appealed our appeal court decision and carried it straight to the Privy Council. After that, it reached the Privy Council, and the Privy Council decided, listen, yes. Let's be fair, someone who is charged with a crime shouldn't be treated as if they were convicted of the crime, and they upheld the appeal court decision by and large. Shortly after that, Mr. Akili was murdered. Yeah. That's lawyers slam gang culture, saddened by Achilles' murder. Rescue the urban youth from pervasive gang culture. That's the call of the executive of the Criminal Bar Association, headed by Senior Counsel Israel Khan, which yesterday extended its condolences to the family of criminal justice advocate Akili Charles on his unfortunate and untimely passing. Charles, 42, who successfully challenged the state in court over the unconstitutionality of parts of the Bail Act that precluded those charged with murder from applying for bail, was shot dead by gunmen by gunmen on Saturday night as he stood outside his Covine Road, Diego Martin home. Yeah. If you're wondering what I'm reading here, I am reading an article from the Express. If you follow and look at the live over on YouTube, you would be able to see that article scrolling behind me. My YouTube channel, Nathan Springer. You can head over there and subscribe. Feel free to subscribe. The lives are streamed there also, and you can catch them on repeat there if you ever miss it. Nathan Springer over on YouTube. So yeah, the Express article on that is where I'm reading. Suspicious timing, and the inside Shadow Princess. Blessed night to you. Tony the Ambassador, good night, sir. Good night, good night. But yes, there is some suspicious timing, it could seem. Last Thursday, the Privy Council ruled in Charles' favor, dismissing the state's appeal and cementing it in law that anyone in Trinidad and Tobago accused of murder was free to apply to the High Court for bail. In a media release yesterday, the CBA said Achille Charles championed the cause whilst incarcerated and continued to champion that cause well beyond his acquittal when there was no longer any personal benefit to him after having lost 9 years of his life incarcerated before his eventual discharge. Good night, Carissa with one S. Good night. But that was an interesting thing that I remember noting about the case even from the beginning. He already lost 9 years of his life, you know. He was already in jail. He could not get bail. He already lost those 9 years. The case that he was being tried on, he was acquitted of. When it came to the court, I believe they didn't have enough evidence, something to that effect, and he was acquitted, found not guilty, basically. Now, that doesn't mean someone didn't do it, but that's the court system we have. So he was already out of it. And yet still, he was, according to the Law Association here, he was still fighting on behalf of some of those who would be in that position, like him afterwards. And it's about high time we move to the ICC rather than the Privy Council. The ICC, or do you mean, because I don't think we have as the ICC as an option. I think you're talking about we spoke about that very recently. The Caribbean Court of Justice. I don't know about the ICC. I don't think ICC is really an option for us like that. Being a bit of a conspiracy theorist, I feel it was a lawsuit the state tried to avoid. Well, I don't know about that. That doesn't really make sense to me. Like, to be very honest, Mr. Shadow Apprentice, I like a good conspiracy myself, but I don't see how the state benefits from that. The state has no care about paying out money. The state isn't going to kill somebody to stop paying out the money. The state gives out billions of dollars on a whim. That isn't what the state kills people for. The thing about the law, it was created to compensate for the slow justice system. I apologize, the CCJ, yes. That's what it is. Now, the CCJ, that's a hard sell. That is a hard sell because we have a law association right now that where many members of the law association seem to like the Privy Council as is. And there is reason for this. We did an entire video speaking about this actually. If you're a regular in the Mindful Live, we would have gone through this discussion before. There are actually good reasons why people would want to remain with the Privy Council. And in a country like ours where it's already pretty divisive, it's a difficult sell actually. Song like You Know What the State Kills For. Listen, Recreate 2020. I am not saying I know what the state kills for. I am just trying to use logic and reasoning here. The state generally doesn't mind paying out money. Paying out money is not what the state tries to avoid. The state tries to avoid allowing scandals to go public. Now, I don't know anything further than that. So I don't know anything in that kind of conspiracy realm as if the state had any reason to do it. As far as it seems, his case was finished. He already won at the Privy Council. It already reached that final stage. His case, he was out of the dark. So there's no reason for the state to want him out of the picture. He already won the case against the state. I don't know if there was any further legal matter pending. Yeah, but it is fishy. Who want Achille Charles dead? Now, according to the Criminal Bar Association, the lawyers, they seem to have some idea about this. Beyond his advocacy for pretrial bail for charges of capital murder, the CBA said Charles sought to advocate for much needed changes in the criminal justice system, now plagued with endemic delay, which continues to result in citizens being held without trials for periods far in excess of 10 years, delays which undermine the rule of law. Right. Charles also advocated, listen to this, Charles also advocated against gang recruitment in his own area, a cause which is believed to have been the reason for his untimely demise, it added. This isn't me saying this. I don't know that to be true. Yo, Ronnie, what's up, what's up, what's up? I don't know this to be true, but this is coming out from the Criminal Bar Association. They're saying that, I don't know where they got that information. I suppose they would have been in regular contact with the man. They're saying that his advocacy against the gangs in his area may have had something to do with it. Is it a situation of because of him it made them look bad? I don't know. Maybe the person who set him up in the first place but didn't get through. Well, the thing is, when you listen to how the Criminal Bar Association speaks about this, they don't seem to shy away from letting it be known that Mr. Charles may have at one point in time been engaged in some less than savory activities. But it seems, according to them, like he was trying his best now to reverse course and get things going down a good line. Now, if you at some point in time were involved in any kind of activity, it is possible that something from a very long time ago could still be there under the surface and someone still wants to come back and do something to you. Bear in mind, what he was accused of was murder. And it wasn't said that they didn't do it as someone came to prove that they didn't do it per se. I believe the case fell out for lack of evidence or something like that. That's the innocent until proven guilty argument. You cannot prove him guilty, so we must assume innocence. But who is to know the fact of the matter? I don't know. All I'm saying is there are many different reasons. It's hard to try to point at one thing. Now, because of the timing, it is very suspicious. To me, I can't see it as one having nothing to do with the other. If I'm trying to put reason to this, it would seem like somebody, whoever wanted him dead, wanted the case to be finished. Because he was free for some time now. And whoever killed him at his home. So they knew where he lived. And they were willing to kill him. So they could have killed him for some time now. They waited till the case finished and then did it. So it seems hard to try to see like that is all coincidence. But I don't know. This is all assuming here. What or where the evidence the TTPS had. All right. Y'all could try to dig into that all on your own. I am not the police. George, sad reflection on Titi and TNT. Meanwhile, attorney Martin George says the murder of Charles is a sad reflection of the Trinidad and Tobago society, where it seems that some young men are safer inside the prison's walls than outside. Because it's just less than a week the Privy Council made that historic ruling on the matter that was brought in his favor, and now he's pronounced dead. And I think that is true. I think that part is true. What or where the evidence, then he won the case to be released. Hey everyone, what are you all talking about? We're talking right now about criminality in Trinidad and Tobago, but more specifically about the murder of the man who was he was a murder accused, he was acquitted of it, and he was the one who got the Bail Act, a certain part of the Bail Act removed. He was the one who he sought allow murder accused to be able to access bail, and he won that case in the Privy Council. He won that case last week Thursday, and then by Saturday he was murdered, which is very curious. But I think it tells something also about the general state in Trinidad and Tobago society, about the violence in a lot of these communities on a whole. Because I don't know how many of you saw it, I believe most people by now would have seen where 7 people were shot. Like 7 people. You look at that video, and I don't know how many of you saw the video, but I saw the video. The video actually isn't very graphic because it's nighttime. You could just kind of see the actions going on, but you can't see any gore. But that video looks like no way that is happening in a place where police are a thing. No way. No way. That cannot be. That's kind of insane. It's to me on the two sides of that. One group of fellas very, 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 very reckless in being willing to execute, because some guy came out there with a rifle and jumped out in the middle of the road and started to discharge that. That's a lot of recklessness. That's not the average guy. That's not the average guy. And then on the other side, for you to be engaged in such a life where there are men that reckless trying to get at you. Listen, if men that reckless trying to get at you, it's very difficult to escape. That's something I remember. I always say this about, like, going to fight in other people's countries, like when the United States goes into those countries in the Middle East, etc. And then they are so willing to battle for their cause, they will kill themselves. Listen, if somebody is extremely reckless to the point where they don't care about their own safety, it's very difficult to protect yourself. It's like fighting with a vagrant. And I'm not trying to call anybody else a vagrant. It's just an analogy. But, if you fight with a vagrant, you always lose that battle because he has nothing to lose. And some of these youth men out here are moving that kind of reckless level. That is scary. And you could wonder what is happening in our society to allow for our young men to have that amount of recklessness in them. Because I am young. I was younger than I am now, and at no point in time, money making, Nico, sir, I read that, but I did not know that. I'm not going to read it out loud, but I don't know, sir, but thanks for that bit of information. But the acting cop says the TTPS knows who and where the gangs are in Trinidad and Tobago, so why the delay to contain them? Listen, a gang is not something easy to take care of. In the United States, they have gangs over and over and over, and they have so much technology and police officers, and they can't contain them too. The thing with gangs is gangs are more symptomatic of something that you could cover it over. It's like if you get monkeypox, you could cover over one boil, but you have monkeypox. The boil is going to pop up somewhere else. You have to get rid of the monkeypox on the inside. The gangs are a symptom of something. The gangs are the symptom of a virus inside of our society, as it were. And the gangs are the sores that grow out on top of our skin. So even if you could somehow, as the police, you'd see about this one sore on your ankle and get it all taken care of. The virus is still there and the sore is going to pop up somewhere else. There's something at the core of it that causes young men to be that reckless. You have a case here where you have a large number of reckless young men. What is the cause of that? Jamie Ford over on Facebook says, sadly, more could have been injured or killed if the man in the yard didn't shoot back. Well, the man in the yard himself could have shot someone, but yes, I saw that. I saw that the man in the yard shot back. That life, I don't think that life is profitable enough for me. Like, even beside the whole morality side of all of this, I just don't think there's enough profit in all of that. Like, when I look at how much money the guys who risk the most make, like that's not enough money, bro. Like we have to do a cost benefit analysis here. And then we could wonder why so many young men see that as somehow being more beneficial. That amount of risk with that little reward. Like, why do they see that as beneficial? I have some ideas. I really do have some ideas on that. But let's get into that article and see a little bit of the details there. By the way, I went down to the Emancipation Village and got me myself an enamel cup. You know, usually my usual coffee mug is a black mug, but that's foreign stuff. And I said, you know what? Maybe the enamel is still made in China, but it is painted in Trinidad. So we up with the old time days back with the enamel cup. I always wanted an enamel cup, long time. Tony the Ambassador says rank and girls. And Tony, you have no idea how correct you are. You have no idea how correct you are. 11-year-old girl among 7 shot in Malik attack. An 11-year-old girl was among 7 people injured in a shooting at 6th Avenue, Malik, on Monday night. The child was standing with a group of people near the roadway when a white Hyundai Elantra car pulled up at around 10:15 p.m. Now, something to note there, and I'm not victim blaming, just something to note, is if you look at the video, it seems, I am not the best aficionado of such, but it seems to a layman like me that may be possibly an unregistered pharmacy. It may have been something of the such. It just seems a bit like that, an unregistered pharmacy. And if so, an 11-year-old girl being in that store, in that kind of store, that hour in the night, really isn't ideal. That already tells you something really isn't totally ideal in the whole situation. The cause of violence is one parent stop being parents, communities stop caring for each other, and the police are too corrupt. The police are part of it. Good night. I was away for a while. My kids got sick. They're now recovering. I hope they recover well. 11-year-old girl that hour. Do you need a detailed map of Trinidad and Tobago for your... Yes, SM Resources. Thank you. Thank you. I would love that. I really would love that. Message me. Please do. You can message me here, Instagram, Facebook, anyway. I really would love that. Hit me up. But yeah, that 11-year-old girl being in the unregistered pharmacy, what may seem like an unregistered pharmacy, may not be ideal in the first case. But this is part of the whole issue with all of this. The reckless young men, we're talking about violence in Trinidad and Tobago, the gang culture, especially dealing with the 7 people who were shot in Malik. Reckless young men, that's the problem with reckless young men. There has always been a historical issue, good night, Scafty, a historical issue with reckless young men. Every single society that got too many reckless young men ended up in trouble. You could go through all of history and figure it out. Now, societies had convenient ways of getting rid of their reckless young men. It sounds brutal, but that is literally what it was. The Vikings to some extent could have been thought of as reckless young men. Rooney, you're reading, you know too well where I go into it. You're rushing. We nearly reached there. So the Vikings could have been said to be reckless young men. And what they did to get rid of their reckless young men was they sent them across the sea to go and be reckless in some other person's country and grab wives. Because here is something that the world realized. Every single culture where you had single young men became exceedingly violent, because young men in that kind of young 20s age have a lot of energy and a lot of drive that is going to head in a certain direction. Somewhere around a couple thousand years ago, we figured out monogamy kind of cures a lot of that. Because when you take these young men and you attach them to a young woman, all of a sudden, for some reason, they boil down. It sounds like some kind of weird, preachy something, but it's literal history. Monogamy calms societies because these young men are no longer out there roaring to get whatever they want to get. You could bet 90% of the men doing that may have girlfriends, but they aren't married men with children. George married to Henrietta with the little son is not going to be toting an AR jumping out of an Elantra 12 o'clock in the night, generally speaking. Not that it's impossible, but it doesn't generally happen. Now, here's something unique that's going on with our society right now. There was a bank in England. I can't remember which. Morgan Stanley recently did a study where they said by the next 10 or 15 years or something like that, 44% of women are going to be single and childless. Now, many of the online culture, they always sing the modern woman about what's bad about that. And how the modern woman is going to suffer and end up childless with her cats and etc. etc. And maybe that might be true and whatever. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that many women don't want to settle. And as the women elevate themselves higher, they are elevating themselves higher than the men. That's part of it. And you can't blame a woman for not wanting to settle. So now you have all these low men with all these women who don't want to settle for them. And these low men in the society have nothing else to do but pester everyone else. It's a reality of the society that we are creating right now. And a society that no longer seems like it encourages young men into that kind of permanent relationship, forcing young men into responsibility and discipline. I personally believe that many young men need to be forced into responsibility and discipline. SM Resources, that is literally what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking to the young men. I'm not saying that women should debase themselves to get to lower men. I'm saying that the solution is you need to elevate yourself. That's the whole solution to it. And you need to figure out ways to allow these young men to elevate themselves in a game that doesn't include violence. Because a lot of these young men, as Tony said, what these young men are fighting for is rank and girls. And that is actually it. Because rank brings girls, so they're fighting for the rank. Unfortunately, the game that they are fighting for the rank in is a destructive game. A lot of these guys, if you could have somehow introduced them to another game to fight for the same rank in, like, say, listen, go and be the best footballer. Because if you could be the best footballer, you would elevate your rank in that, and it would be the same thing. You'd have an elevated rank. But no, they are introduced into the gang game. And gangs are created for that young male mind. There's a reason that gangs are mostly men and not women. It's created for that ranking mind. Do you think these young men will be a good partner? No, they will not recreate. That's what I'm saying. They are horrible partners. They need to elevate themselves first. I am not saying for some woman to go and take them somehow and try and magically make them into anything. The thing is, the young men do need to play a game of ranks. And we created a generation where we think that everyone is supposed to win. The game is everyone is the winner, you know, the participation trophy, etc. But that's not reality. Reality is there's always rank. And these gangs are crafted for the young male mind like that. Gangs are created as a ranking system. Gangs mirror the army. Why do you think they seem like they mirror each other like that? Because both of them are created for the same kind of mind. The same guy who would love a gang is very often the same guy who would love the military, because they're looking for that ranking to go through. And gangs are created to play on that same thing. Many of these guys, I'm not saying that there is some magic social solution, that if we create some kind of social magic program, we could get all the young men in Trinidad in there and they're going to magically be no crime anymore. No, that's not what I'm saying. But some of these young men need to understand that you can elevate the same rank in another game, in a game that doesn't have that level of risk. And as a culture, I think we should be encouraging monogamy. Get some of these young men to need some responsibility. A generation of young men in their 20s, they have all the energy, they have all the time, and they have no purpose to head it towards. Somebody is going to take them and carry it to their purpose. You have to watch the communities from small, the music and environment, train the mindset of these boys. Partially true, yes, that's true. This young generation of males lack discipline, yes. And why do they lack discipline? Who was supposed to discipline them that didn't? How did that happen? The young generation lacks discipline. That's the strange thing to me. How generations that grew up, the next generation, blame the next generation for lacking discipline. If they lack discipline, then that's your generation that didn't discipline them. And to me, when I look at the world, although I'm saying this might be the solution for something like that, when I look at the direction we are headed in, I think we are headed into directions to make these things worse, to only exacerbate these problems, because there are more and more single men out there. By the day, more women, as the studies say that's what the studies say, more women are being single. And more women single means obviously more men single. And then, here's an interesting fact. I think I may accumulate all of these and do a YouTube video on it. Within the last 50 years, infidelity among women has increased by 40%. And it seems like we are heading back to a polygynous society more. Much of the Western world, as we have had sexual liberation in the Western world, we are headed back to that kind of polygyny, where you have one man with multiple women. There's a saying among some of those online world people where they say the modern woman is a side chick. And I did not make that up. I do not endorse that. But that's what the saying says. And some stats seem to be pointing in that direction even more. I don't think that's a benefit for young women of the modern day. And I think that's a plain numbers game, going to leave a lot more young men doing nothing with their time. And young men doing nothing with their time eventually start to harass people who want to do something with theirs. And I look at the world and I'm wondering, is there any way we reverse from the direction we're already headed in? I really wonder that. Because even beside the communities being downtrodden and the communities being poor, etc., etc., I think a lot of these young men, if they had responsibilities, it may have been a more difficult life for them, but I don't think they would have resorted to gang life. Gang life is symptomatic of something different. You have to have a certain, as I said, a certain amount of recklessness, a certain amount of I have nothing left to lose in order to reach to that kind of level. That's not just poverty. That's not just the parents' indiscipline only. That's a certain amount of recklessness. There are indisciplined people who don't have that reckless intent enough to join a gang. Don't get tied up with that side rule. It could be the end of your life. Empress really correct, and when they get called out, they get vexed and offended, but it's true. Responsibility starts at home. Lack of parental role models and parental involvement produces what we are seeing. I agree. I agree. Of course, it's parenting. That's the people who create the next generation. They're the one who train them. So it's of course the parenting. Do you see this as a taming mechanism as well? Yes, it is a taming mechanism. Do you know that when a man has a child, his testosterone levels decrease? He produces more estrogen. His body actually produces more female hormones and decreases the amount of male hormones. So his tendency for aggression decreases. I'm talking pure biology here. As those who are familiar with the life would know, there's a biological reason for that. I need a sign saying that right there. That is a biological reality. So you throw in a lot more fathers in the mix, a lot more fathers in permanent relationships in the mix, and you have a lot more peaceful men, and that's just the biological reality. So as a society, we could be asking ourselves, what can we do to try to make sure as many men as possible are tamed as well as we can? And this is really selfish. We could think about this as selfish because it's inevitable. It's just a numbers game. You have too many young men out there with no purpose. What else is going to happen? Unless you want to go back to the old time days where you say, like, when we get too many young men, let's figure out a country to go to war to. Like, that's what they did. That some of those older civilizations went to war based on, when we get too many of these young men, I think it's a good time to go to war, fellas. Let's go conquer some land. As much as feminists will hate me, if there were more stay-at-home moms, children would be better off. You are right. You are very right. I do not disagree one bit with you. I think one of the things that happened is in society, we tried to counteract for some historical wrongs and historical imbalances among the sexes and gender, but in doing so, I think we put too much weight on things considered masculine traits and too little weight on things considered feminine traits. So when we look at something that is considered more feminine, we automatically think of it as being lesser for some reason. That's a societal weight. There's no intrinsic or extrinsic value to this. We're determining what makes something valuable. If I sit here and I speak for 2 hours, and I have a wife who feeds me and makes sure all my drinks are topped up to make sure that I could do this for 2 hours. Who is to say who is more important in that? And society makes one determine which one is more important. Now, I am not saying that we shouldn't allow people the freedom to do whichever one they choose. Yeah, by all means, you have the freedom to do whichever one you choose. But when society places a value on something, society puts the value there. And the strange thing to me is it seems to me like a lot of the times it's the women that seem to devalue the feminine traits, things that would seem as more stereotypical feminine. They're the ones seeming to devalue some of that, and it's only if you are into some field that was more stereotypically masculine, all of a sudden that means you're powerful and independent. Well, so be it, but we'll see the consequences of that. Not practical, though, to have stay-at-home mothers. Economics does not allow it. Easy 868, if they are home with a child and know that child, they can figure out how to correct them. It does depend. You need to consider dual income as opposed to nurture of children. Yeah. I agree and understand the argument, the fact many people make and draw about how difficult it is in the modern society. And I think personally, this is my personal view, I think the capitalists, some of those big companies, pulled a smart one when they when they moved past allowing just the freedom for women to enter the workforce, and then they went down the line of pushing and encouraging women and making it seem like this is the thing to do to really be a modern woman. I think that was the scheme, because by By forcing more people into the workforce, you allowed for a lower ratio of pay. I believe that was a bit of their trick. And now we are seeing some of the results of that, where one person can no longer upkeep a home. Now you need two people to do it. Now I think it still has to be a cost benefit analysis, because you could look at it and wonder, in the idea of paying for schooling, paying for daycare, the cost of the fact that you would more likely eat more processed food. What would be the health cost of eating more processed food? Like, if you put all the costs together, which one would actually be worse? If you are paid $12,000 per month going out there, would that $12,000 be able to cover all that you may be able to provide for your family if you are at home? I think, and that's what I was saying, that I think in modern society, we have devalued some of the things that were considered feminine traits. I think some women at home were producing for their family way more in value than 12,000 measly dollars a month. I think. And some people made it seem like if someone was at home, that they are not productive at home. You could be very productive in another place. Now, this isn't necessarily telling anyone where to work or where not to work, or if not to work. I'm just drawing an example here. You could be very productive at home, and I think if you check the cost, you may be surprised in some cases. I wonder about it sometimes, if it's worth it. You see a mother, maybe a mother of 3, and she is drawn out of her home for 12 hours a day, and she's paid $6,000 a month. Is $6,000 a month worth what she could have given her 3 children for 12 hours a day? Like, if you think about it, if you were to pay a nanny with the skill and knowledge you have of your child, if you were to pay them for 12 hours of work a day and pay them for each of your 3 children, how much do you think that would have cost? And is the salary you getting outside of the home equivalent to that? And I think that's all in the cost benefit analysis. Like, I've said it before. I live in a household. My mother worked, and then at some point in time, she realized that she had 3 sons. These 3 sons seem like they aren't going to be headed in the direction I really want them to go in if I continue like this, and she stopped. And it's not like we were super wealthy. And I'm like, it's not a critique on anyone for not doing that. As I said, I believe it's everyone's free prerogative to do what they think. But I think in everything you have to evaluate the cost of it. Like, in your situation, everyone's situation may be different, but you have to really evaluate the cost of it, and don't look at something with the modern societal lens, looking or frowning down on some other view, like thinking something is lesser because it's a different rule. Like, think of it in the actual equal roles. Like, if you want to do what you want to do, don't frown on that. Don't look down on it as lesser than. Like, for some of these things, you look in some of the countries where they have some of those really embedded gender roles. You look at some of rural India, and some of the India created the India Institute of Technology, and they have some of the top engineers in the world. And you look at some of those engineers sometimes that came from the poor background, and how they exalt the matriarch of their family when they reach to that point. And you could wonder, that matriarch who was almost surely some of the most rural stay-at-home style mother, would she have had a more fulfilling life if she went out and worked for minimum wage versus stayed home and pushed that child and crafted a whole different being? What would have been more fulfilling for her? It's human choice. Cost benefit analysis doesn't equal to the reality of life, especially to a single mother. Well, that creates a whole other dynamic. That's very true. And I believe that's not how that makes it basically impossible. Single parents are doing the impossible, because that's not how it's supposed to be possible. So that's what I'm saying. You're doing the impossible. So I'm not talking about every single person being obvious, having some obvious right choice. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying for every person, that's a cost benefit analysis. That's why we're here now. Good night, shy guy. But yeah, and as Jamie Ford said over there on Facebook, that's very true with the single parenthood business. That makes the whole thing a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated because a single parent, and single parent is such a weird thing because there aren't really any single parents except for Mary. But we all understand that situations happen, and for a single parent, oftentimes it's not just you cut off one of the parents. Sometimes you cut off a whole other avenue of family. Like in if you look at demographics, if you look at demographic statistics in countries that keep some of those, the demographics of the people who do best in society are very often some of those South Asians, because what they do is they have that family structure where grandparents are able to see about baby during the time when parents have to work, etc., etc., etc. Now with a single parent, that whole grandparent structure could be cut off too. You lose half of the grandparents, you lose half of the aunts, you lose half of the cousins. Yeah, that it really is not ideal. And I think as a society, we should be striving to do everything to avoid such things as much as is possible. Oi, brother, you're good. Good night, good night. Thank you, Fearless. Grandparents is to spoil. Well, yeah, grandparents are the babysitters. But if you're asking me if I would choose my grandparents as the grandparents as a babysitter versus pay some random stranger as a babysitter, I think that's a no-brainer to me. But Nathan, sometimes you can be a single parent. Hey, 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 hey. Good night, Ria. Good night, Ria. Nisi, that is very true. That is very true. I have there's a and I hope I know my mind folks inside the Mindful Live understand when I speak. There's a class of parents in Trinidad, particularly men, that I call the old Creole. They are old Creole fathers. I don't like it. Where they have the provision side down, they will provide for the child. That child, I just walk every day, you know, boy. I just walk whole day, you know. But this kind of hug up, ting, and I and like they don't even like it's nearly like they don't even know their children by their first name. If their children goes to speak to them, they shake their hand awkwardly because they hardly ever speak to their father. So yeah, I believe there could be single parents within married households, etc. I see that too. My grandmother traumatized me. All I remember is licks and a set of talks. But no nurturing, yes, no nurturing, none at all. I find that horrible. I find that horrible. And I think it's a cultural thing that passed down through the ages. To me, something that I'm grateful for when I look at men my age, millennial men, a lot of the guys I see as fathers, they seem to be a lot more affectionate with their children. They don't seem to be that kind of distant kind of business, at least the guys I know around me. And I'm grateful for that. No, licks is Licks, lashes, blows, physical discipline, corporal punishment, wallops with a belt, a few thumpings, spankings. But yeah, anything will do, Canivesta. Anything will do. It's not just a shoe or wooden spoon. Anything at that given moment will do. Anything at that given moment. But to a large extent, as I was saying, I think a lot of the crime, a lot of what we see worsening in our society has to do with the problems we have even in the gender roles. For people who are in the life long enough, know I am not in this modern thing where we try to pretend like there aren't gender roles. I think when you look at a man and you look at a woman, they look obviously different. You have to be a denier of science, a denier of truth to look at a man and woman and say they aren't different. It's obvious. They are different, they look different, they are interested in different things. I think if that is the case, it seems obvious that they would generally do different things and perform different roles. And generally, what we have realized over time is that we perform those roles best together. And what you realize about young men is young men do nearly anything for female attention, including behave themselves. It's a conscious effort to make that change, though, and the young men now are lacking it. Maybe they are. And young men need that male mentoring figure, I think, to do that. Because the game they are playing, as I said, the rank they are going up, the ranks they are, the hierarchies they are heading up inside of the gang, they are looking at role models inside of that. They have figures they idolize inside of that, and that's why they are playing that game. As I was saying, the ideal is to somehow get them out of that into another one. And what's the other game? What's the other route from that? And to me, what I think some people don't understand about young men is that sometimes when we attempt to bring them into another game, when we attempt to try and fix young men, we try to bring them into some easy place and figure out some easy thing to do. Gang life isn't easy, and these young men are running into it. Young men don't need something easy. They need something challenging, something really difficult for them to try themselves at, get better at, and go up the ranks in. A guy who jumps, as I said, jumps out of an Elantra at 11 or 12 whenever in the night with an AR-15 shooting. That's not a guy looking for something easy. That's not easy he's looking for. So some of these young men, we need to be able to provide them with another difficult alternative that is better rewarding. My brother and I grew up with proper hidings, but I see him with his kids and it's beautiful. He has never hit his kids and they're actually pretty cool. Maybe. When the girls, some men go around like Batman, they would jump through the hoop to get the girl. All right. That was the first Mindful Live back in a while, folks. I was missing for a while. As I said, I went down to the Emancipation Village. Hey, I wanted to tell a little about the Emancipation Village. Had a kind of fudge here. I have to go and find these people. Exotic Love Bites. Here now. Had a Guinness fudge inside there. Well, yes. And somebody accosted me and forced me to drink some wine. Like, you know, I wasn't aiming to drink the homemade wine like that, but somebody was like, "Sir, you have to drink some wine." So I was like, if I have to, I'll take a sip. And then they were trying to get my wife to drink some, and I'm like, listen. She's not in a state to be drinking any of this. I will have hers. You know, sometimes you have to stand in for your wife, you know, at moments like this. So I took the sip for her and I ended up taking 2 sips. So if you saw me in the Emancipation Village taking 2 sips of homemade wine, that would be why. But yes, the fudge, other than that, I went the other night, didn't see any of them thing. Well, I went in the daytime. I find it was good. It was good, but I find like it's not to the potential. It's not to the potential that it can be. It's time. Good night. Good night, Recreate 2020. It's not to the potential it can be. Like when I look at the Emancipation Village and I know what Trinidad has to offer, I'm like there seems to be a little disparity. What is the local drink of Trinidad? Punchin. I'm kidding. There are many local drinks. Sorrel is a local drink. Pancha creme. But we are known for rum also because of our cane sugar heritage. We are also known for rum. We are known for rum and we are known for having the lovers of rum. So it's quite a match having rum and the lovers of rum in the same country. Fortunate for the rum company. Very fortunate for them. Ah. But yeah, I found it had vendors, but I find there could have been much more vendors. Not enough diversity. Correct, correct. Um not enough diversity. We could have had a lot more stalls, and I know Trinidad has a lot more to offer. And I don't like I am not involved in that, so I don't know anything personally about it. So you could feel like there must be a miss in communication, a miss in organization somewhere between the many local entrepreneurs and vendors we know that we have, and allowing them to show up there. Like, and the, maybe if you have have more vendors and you allow the vendors somehow more social media engagement to increase the traffic. Like, we are in a more social world, you need to, I think, upgrade to that more social aspect, because I think something like that, where it's an emancipation village, it's supposed to be a cultural center. I to me, that is supposed to be busy with people for the entire time it's open. That's the kind of way I'm thinking about it. But hello, how are you? I am well. Hey, Takin Fuijin. I know who you are. I am well, and how are you? And how are the children? They don't do proper advertising for the market. I don't know. I don't know. And I know they real advertise on I-95. So, you know, come to think about it, the village looks like it is planned and advertised and executed on I-95. And I like I-95. Just so you would know, this isn't a criticism on I-95. I like I-95, but yeah, for those of you who know what Trinidad radio is, you might understand what I mean when I say that. That's what it looks like. Who listens? Exactly, Shy Panda. Exactly. Who listens to I-95? But I-95 has a large listenership, eh? It is the older heads. And if you're looking to extend something further, you can't just be only catering. You have to. I found to me that there was much more opportunity. No, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I went, I did enjoy it. But I found there was opportunity that was missed there. I like I-95. Me too. I'm not denying it. I like I-95. I take in my I-95. I like to listen to the old people back now and the old politics station. I take in a little morning pan chat too when I can. It's all good. With what? Saturday night had a Trinidad artist. Serious? Perhaps. I didn't know that. But like, whose idea that was? Though, like, I don't even like things like that. A Trinidad artist. No, I'm not criticizing men and their art. You doing your things, but a Trinidad artist. What crowd would a Trinidad artist attract? And is that the kind of crowd that would generally attend an Emancipation Day village something? Like, it's like when some of these cartoon shows make shows looking for feminists or something. Like, feminists don't look at the cartoon movies, so you're appealing to an audience that isn't interested in your content anyway. With the Trinidad artist, you're going to bring a Trinidad artist there for people who are looking for a more cultural show, and they're going to be like, did you ever use a quote to get a radio station? Nah. My radio had an antenna. My radio had an antenna. and we never broke it off. Well, I think we did break it off, but you could have bought a replacement and screwed it back on. All right, folks. All right, folks. It was nice as per usual. And I will see you again tomorrow for the next Mindful Live. For the next Mindful Live, when we link up again. Missed you all for the while we weren't there. But I'm back. And we're good. Enamel Cup. Good stuff. Good chat. Link me for the map. Seriously. Very serious about the map. Thank you very much. Ria, girl, as I tell people, I am not a planner. You know? I am not a planner. But very soon, we will plan it. You always asking about this at the end. You ask about that 20 minutes ago, and we'd have planned something. So come tomorrow with some ideas, and we'll see. All right, folks, thank you for being here. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you tomorrow for the next Mindful